Welcome back, Rebels.
Welcome back. If you are on the Twitter, then head to @DavidSpeedUK, give me a follow. And my pinned tweet at the moment is a thread that I wrote about getting 100k on Instagram and the ways that I believe that happened. I've kind of dissected. I've been thinking about it a lot since obviously reaching that milestone. Last week, I had a chat with you, Ad, where I was having a little bit of a breakdown about
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether it was a good thing or not to have 100k because I was probably getting more commission requests when I was at the 20 to 40k mark. And you talked some sense into me. And I spoke to David Puck, former guest on the show the other week, and he was saying the same things as you. He was like, no, it's good to have the high number just for social proof and for everything that goes into that. So I've kind of got over that silliness. It seems so stupid, doesn't it? Like champagne problems complaining about having a big number, but yeah. So I've been thinking about sort of the things, and we weren't actually going to talk about this, but it wasn't until you said to me this morning that how many artist ads you're seeing on Instagram. Because one of the things I said in this thread is I don't believe that you should spend any money on growing on Instagram because I don't think it's actually worth it. But you've been getting loads and loads of artists sort of ads on Instagram at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the algorithm on Instagram is very good for targeting ads at you. So whatever you're interested in, whatever you've been following most recently is generally the thing that you start to get targeted with. So I've been listening to a lot of things about NFTs at the moment. I'm starting getting loads of NFT ads, just all this shit just being pumped at me all the time. And there's also quite a few traditional artists who I've started to follow recently, just kind of looking around because I feel like I haven't followed many artists for quite a long time. Whereas it's always kind of good to every now and again just go and look at stuff. So for me, I never want to be too inspired by one thing, so my work starts to head down a certain direction. So I don't really follow many artists or photographers or people that I know because I do it all the time where I'm just getting infatuated with one artist and I'm like, well, that's really cool. I'm going to start copying this stuff and it's really cool. But then I know I don't want that to impact my style. So then I unfollow those people and kind of just try and dip in every now and again. So I'm currently on one of those waves where I'm following loads of different people just to see what's out there, kind of see the current styles, see the current trends, that kind of thing. So yeah, follow these people. And then all of a sudden Instagram starts to pump at me all of the ads from every other artist who's decided, oh, actually I'm going to start advertising on Instagram. And it's almost sad because I almost feel like people are wasting their money in what they're spending. They could be spending that money on improving their craft, taking courses, getting better materials, other things that are actually going to make them better. Whereas I think we're at a stage where people have started an art Instagram account and they're thinking, I haven't got many followers on this. How'd you get followers? I don't really know. So I'm just going to pay Instagram because Instagram will have popped up being like, would you like to promote this post? And they've thought, oh, well, if that's how I get likes, then I'm definitely going to do that. And I've seen businesses do it before as well, where there's they don't really understand how to grow. And they're just like, oh, well, if I just pay for this, surely that's going to get me likes and followers. But I think it's so hard to convey a message or anything in just a quick story ad. It pops up, oh, here's an image of some work that you've just pressed boost post on. And unless that is literally the most amazing thing I've ever seen, bearing in mind, the people I'm following on Instagram have probably all got in excess of 100,000 followers. They're all professional artists who've been doing it for probably 20 years, have all mastered their craft to a certain degree. If something pops up that's average, I'm not going to instantly go into that account and then follow it because it's I'm not following that many artists already. So it's a very hard one because it's as an artist, I think obviously there is that level of you start somewhere. Well, you start at being awful and you get to a stage where you master it over a long period of time. There is that whole bit in the middle where you're not a master yet, but you still need people to support you. But then it's well, how do I get them to support me? And I just feel like Instagram ads probably aren't the right way to do that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to be talking about Instagram at this moment in time, and I would advise everyone to think carefully if Instagram is definitely the platform for you. Currently, it does seem to still have the same life that it once did, almost because getting likes and comments and all of that stuff is so addictive, it's scientifically proven to be addicted to our human brains. To then deny you from it means that some people are going to pay to get that same dopamine boost through their platform. And I'm wondering, I just see the signs that, and I'm sure you'll probably disagree with me on this, but I can see the signs of that. I'm not sure how much longer Instagram is going to be like that number one go-to platform. I think currently the number one website in the world is TikTok. It's where I spend a lot more of my time. I'm on TikTok a lot more than I'm on Instagram. So I think maybe there are those warning signs that, which is fucking annoying for me, given like I feel like I've just cracked it over the past couple of years, like really got my Instagram game down. To be then here saying like, I think this platform might be showing those first early signs that it's maybe going to be dying. And I mean, obviously, there's a very innovative team at Facebook who are always going to be looking at what's successful in other social media and bringing those forward. That's one of the points on my tweet thread, is talking about video, like make 2022 the year that you move into video. And we have so many artists complain about video, and Instagram traditionally was a photo sharing app, but it's not anymore. Like, it has to compete with TikTok, and I don't post stills on my feed. Like 99% of the content that I post is video based. And yes, that might take you a little bit longer to make. But again, as I say in the tweet thread, I've only got an iPhone and I edit everything on Instagram or TikTok. I only use those apps. But I think that things are evolving. To treat Instagram how you treated it 10 years ago, you're not going to see success. I think throwing money at it, you can be successful if you craft like, don't just boost one of your posts. Think like an advertiser. If you're going to be making an advertisement for yourself, what is the hook point that's going, like, look at successful ads of the past that have been hugely popular. What can you do if you are going to do a boosted post on Instagram? Because I'm not saying it's never going to work. Like, obviously there are going to be some people that are going to make it work. But like you said, just posting a random picture from your feed, this and then just doing the boost post, as opposed to like going really into the back end of Facebook ads and working out who you want to send it out to, that's going to give you a lot more success if you are actually wanting to spend money. But literally, I mean, on my road to 100k, I did spend some money with some of those like art sharing pages. So some of them would be like $50 to share one of your posts, $25 to share one of your posts. I tried that out. I think I did 3 overall, and they just, I mean, yes, I maybe got 20, 30 followers. Like, you're looking like $1 a follower. It was just not, like, it was just not worth it. So I stopped doing that. And so I really do think that you can build a large following without putting any money into ads.
100%. And as you're talking about there, in terms of Instagram and kind of like it kind of maybe dying and other platforms taking off, and you're like, you'll probably disagree with this. I'm going to come back and I'm going to disagree with that, because it's interesting. I think you see kind of ebbs and flows with platforms. And I think we grew up at a time when MySpace was a thing, and we all saw that absolutely rocket off a cliff, and Facebook did exactly the same. Meta as a company, which we're going to call it now, then I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. I think they're going to learn from what they did before. We're going too heavy on the ads on Facebook, and try not to do that again on Instagram. And it's interesting because I remember you talking to me about your sister and how she started using Twitter loads. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because this was at a time for me when I was like, oh, Twitter's kind of like on a bit of a downward curve. Whereas I feel like, again, Twitter is on the up again from kind of like my observations and like the world I'm in. And I always feel like Instagram's done the same, where I speak to a lot of kind of Gen Z people, and they are very heavily on TikTok, kind of moving over to there. That's their probably platform of choice for their personal fun entertainment, 100%. But they all say that Instagram is the platform they need for being professional. So these people who are trying to have a professional account as a way to advertise to the outside world, they're using Instagram for that, which I suppose previously would have been maybe a Facebook business page. Now we're at a stage where the Instagram is their professional portfolio to the outside world. So I think that might be an interesting way to kind of think about how we do things. Like, do we use Instagram as our portfolio, but use TikTok as a way to drive people to see our portfolio? It's almost like that's the kind of entertaining kind of community side, making kind of the fun part of it. But then we've got Instagram as our platform that is just the refined pieces that we move over to there. And I think that's also a great way to just experiment more, because if you're on TikTok, it doesn't matter. Like, just put out the things, just see what happens, see what resonates, because you'll really drive people over. And I've worked with quite a few people who are kind of quite big YouTube influencers, and their Instagram followings are huge. The amount of likes they get per post is like massive. Their engagement is huge. And that's not because they're good on Instagram. That's because they're good on a different platform. People have followed them on there and they just like those people. I think YouTube's a perfect example of that, because if you watch someone on YouTube regularly, you love that person. You watch them all the time because you like who they are and what they talk about. And then their Instagram accounts, if it pops up and it's like, oh, this person that I love just done something, I'm going to like it whether I really love that post or not. There might be another post that I like more that I didn't like, but because I like that person, I'm just going to give it a like. And I think what people quite often do there is they will look at those people who have the huge engagement and they'll be like, well, I need to do what they're doing. And they'll be frustrated when it doesn't work. But then they don't realize that that's not why it's not working. It's not because the post you did wasn't as good as this other person's. It's because they like the other people more, because the other people have given them more value over time. They've grown a bigger relationship with them. It's like if you've got a family member that posts something that's a bit crap, that you would never follow them if they weren't your family, you'll still like their posts because you have a relationship with them. And I think that's what often gets lost within social media, is the social side of it, the actual relationship that's between you and the audience. And I think if we can create something that is relationship building and your content, like how can we make those two things happen? And I think that's where TikTok's a perfect way to kind of get your authentic side across, who you actually are, and YouTube as well. I think both of them, I think if you've got time to put into one or the other, you should pick one and just do it well rather than try and do both not so well. But I think those two video centric platforms are a way to grow a relationship with an audience. And I suppose your success has mainly come through the use of video on Instagram, which is also a great way as well. It's like if you think about maybe your main feed as your "this is my refined thing," all your reels can be, no one has to see your reels. They're kind of in a separate tab if you want them to be. So it's like, how do we kind of use video as a way to build relationship with our audience, to make them like who we are, to kind of have that kind of more authentic connection. But then you've still got the professional side of, well, this is the thing, like, because most people listening to the show, I imagine, are trying to turn their creativity into a career, or they're currently on that path in some form. So it's like we need somewhere to be able to display our stuff as a portfolio, because as a business, as creatives, as an artist, that's what we have to have. So how do we have that balance between keeping something that is still a portfolio and having something that is an authentic audience building, relationship building tool?
And to add to that, I think one of the most underutilized features of Instagram is the comments, is your caption. So I use that caption to continually reaffirm why I'm making the work, what the work's about, and that's going to gather around you the people who think and believe the same stuff as you. And if you are shared, like one thing we always say is make shareable content. If you are shared on one of those big pages and all of a sudden you get this huge influx of followers, then they need to know who you are. So you've got a very small amount of real estate at the top of your profile to give people a rough idea of about you. And that's what they're going to make the snap decision on whether they follow you from. But then you've also got your captions and your stories where you can build on that relationship. And you've got to realize that as you are gaining new followers, each one of those is always a new person that doesn't know your backstory. So going over your backstory again and again, re-explaining the important things. Because I think if you think of you and me, Ad, like there is zero of our lives on the internet. Like if you and me go and have a beautiful dinner, then we go, that was a really lovely dinner. Maybe it'll be in our camera roll, but for the most part, it's just in our head. When we're out with friends, we're out with friends. When we see family members, when we're playing with a cute puppy, like whatever happens in our lives, we live it as human beings and we don't put it on the internet. And I think that's a reason why I'm a really happy person, because I have no competition. I don't view any profiles that have all of that life stuff, that like life successes, or the image of here's my new car or house or friendship group or whatever those things might be, that can, I think, negatively affect people's self-esteem and their sense of competition and all of that sort of stuff of I suppose it's like the feeling of I'm not enough. I don't have that because I don't view it and I don't share my side. Like literally all I do is I put out my work and I talk about there are definite ties between my work and my life. Those are the things that I'll talk about in the captions. So I think my advice then, to kind of sum that up, my advice then is like, we are in the business of like building relationships. Like there are some people, like you were saying, the YouTubers, there are some people, those YouTubers, their Instagram is pretty much their kind of diary of their life, and it's very different to the content that they make on. And that's fine if that's the path you choose to go down. But for me, like I don't want to get into that competitive nature of I'm doing really well, like I'm doing better than you or worse than you, or judging myself, or like my life is separate. Like I was saying to you this morning that we've just got a puppy and sent you pictures of puppy, but like there's no pictures of my puppy on Instagram. I don't need the validation from outside people. I'm fine to sit and play with Beans on his own and just have that between the two of us. I don't need likes on Instagram because I know I sent you those pictures. He's a fucking cute dog, right?
And also, you sent me the pictures. I instantly that's a viral dog because you sent it to me and I instantly shared it with someone else. So it's like that you've created shareable content there, but that's not they going out to the world.
What end? Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, he's a beautiful boy, but he's my boy, and I'm not so addicted to likes that I'm like, oh, but if I post a picture of my puppy, that's going to do really well on social media. So it's for me, like, it comes back to the work. Like, I know we always say it, but like the work is the most important thing. If you are trying to be, I don't think we've got many people listening to this show. I know there are some because we've seen them in the DMs, but there aren't many people out here who are listening to this show that are trying to build a lifestyle brand that want people interested in what they're doing day to day. We've got artisans, craftspeople, makers that are building something that make work that they put out into the world. And for those people, like, unless you want to, I don't think you need to be sharing your life. And if it's making you stressed, then you definitely shouldn't be doing it. And I know that there's so many creators that I've spoken to that the whole social media thing in general just gives them anxiety. And really, social media is a tool. It is a tool. Like, you use it like you would use a hammer. Like, a hammer bangs a nail into a wall. That's what you use it for. That's what it's there for. Your Instagram bangs your career out to the outside world. It hopefully creates enough of a visibility around you that at the end of that visibility, some people are buying work from you. You're able to support yourself as a creative in this current economy because there are enough people interested in your work that some of them actually want to purchase it. And I think that's, if you treat it like I have no emotion about it, like, I'll be pissed if Instagram does die and I do lose all of those followers, but hopefully I've got enough of an engaged relationship with enough of those people that when I go, oh, if I'm moving over to app X over here, which is the new trendy app that everyone's on, I'll post that on my dying Instagram, and then hopefully a core bunch of people who are really, really excited and want to see what I'm doing on this new platform, they'll follow over. But that's because those people have an engaged relationship with me, because they've seen me in their feed enough times, they've read about my work enough times, they've engaged with me. Because they're engaging with me, they continue to see me. And it's like this many episodes back when we spoke to Marin Tangai, and she was talking about social media and junk food and the junk in your feed. I follow some of those junk accounts, you know. I do follow some of those. Not on my David Speed account, but on my like burner account. And like, they do, like, if they move to another platform and all of a sudden, I've had it before actually, where people have posted, I'm no longer on this Instagram, here's my new one. I don't bother following the new one. There wasn't enough of a connection there. They got one of those frivolous, like, oh, I might as well give these people a follow. But then they didn't build on that follow with like engaging content that made me want to stick around and follow them to the next place that they went.
What would be a really interesting experiment to do is if everyone could only have an Instagram account for a year, and then you had to start a new one. Because I think then every time you're like, hey, this is dying, this is the new one I'm moving to. Oh. Seeing how many people move over, because that's your core audience. That's how many people actually care about you, which is like brutal. Because
that would be such a ballsy move. That would be incredible.
We all live in this world where this is the number we're at. This is how many people care about me. Whereas, unfortunately, most of the people don't actually engage or care. They just, made that frivolous. Oh, that one thing is cool, because at that one moment they were like, oh yeah, I'll give that a follow.
See, I know I don't have the bollocks to actually do that. I know 100% that I don't have the bollocks to actually do that, because exactly like you said, I like to think that there's 104,000 people that are interested in me. But if I'm honest, I know that that's absolute bullshit. And I'm so tempted. I'm not going to do it, but I'm so tempted to like just sack it off and just go, okay, if you really care, follow this account. So then I think there's a really good lesson there of like, everyone's always so worried about the numbers, and it's like, forget that. These numbers mean nothing. Like, we've both just admitted that if we started a new Instagram tomorrow, like we'd have very, very small followings.
Yeah.
And like that, but those are the followers that matter. Those are the engaged ones. And one thing that I said in the thread is make sure that you've got a mailing list or somewhere else that isn't at the mercy of an algorithm. And I suppose, I mean, so maybe my number will be 2,000 because that's how many people I've got on my mailing list. Maybe they're the people that care enough that would follow me to a new account. But so the lesson there is like, if you're looking at all of these accounts and feeling some sort of envy, like, know that most people that follow those accounts is just a passing, like, it's some little bit of candy in their feed, and they like it, but they're not super engaged. They're not engaged enough that they'd follow it somewhere else. So, and again, this is another thing that I said in the thread. You really should check out this thread because you'll get a lot of value from it. But but one of the things I said in the thread was like, don't go chasing the new numbers. Just think about the people who already follow you and make content for them. And I think that's the key thing to do, is like, build this community, make work for them. When people can see, like, if you see a really fun party going on, then you'll look through the door and you'll go, oh, I'd love to be in that party. And if the door's open and there's someone on the door who goes, oh no, you can come into this party, that's fine, then you can come in and you can go in and have a good time.
It reminds me when we were talking to Laura Giassi the other week, when she basically has on her account of like, this account isn't for these people. And I think having almost like a doorman there to be like, which is basically your bio or whatever you're saying in the captions,
so you've got
or
a
whatever.
big sign above the door.
Yeah, that says like, this is for these people. If you're into this, come in, have a party because it's great in here. But if you're not, then go somewhere else, because there will be another party for them to go into. Whereas I feel like quite often you'll get people who just say, anyone can come in, this is great, and it's for anyone. But then that's where we end up in the same situation we were talking about before, where if you move to a new account, those people won't want to come there because they're like, oh, well, I wasn't that into that party before, so I'm not going to go to the second one. Talking there about captions, I think that this is an interesting thing that I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it as well. But I've noticed, because we've kind of talked about this in the past about kind of captions and how important they are, that I don't really read captions on Instagram. But what I do read is if someone has it where you swipe across and they've just got a screenshot of text, I will sit and read all of that. And whereas I think because Instagram makes you press the more button to go down onto to see the rest of a long caption. And I've noticed it with a few people that I follow recently, where it's obviously new year, people are trying like new things to be like really good in kind of like doing all the things that they weren't doing before to try and grow and that kind of thing. And I'm seeing a lot of people write longer articles this year. Like as January the 1st ticked over, the quality of the amount of time they put into their posts just absolutely skyrockets. And I've seen it with loads of different creators that I follow. But the people who wrote long captions, I'm like, I don't actually read these. Like, but I will happily swipe across 10 things and then read absolutely loads if it's like within that kind of format. Even if you've just written on your notes, you screenshotted it and you've brought in that, or you've taken a screenshot of a Twitter thing that you've said. I think, like, I don't know if this is, I don't know the actual stats on it, but this is how I consume. And I think that's quite an interesting thing to think about if you're trying to build a relationship, is to make it so the first bit is maybe that kind of like nice thing that it draws everyone in and think, oh, that's the perfect one. That's your portfolio piece. But then like so many people I see at the moment, they'll have that nice picture, but you swipe across and it's like, oh, here's a picture of me like looking really cool. Then, oh, here's a picture of me looking silly. Here's a picture of something random that I like. And it's almost just like you get an idea of their life a lot more within those swipes. So I think that can be quite a nice way to build in your personality into stuff, into your captions, but not have it in the physical caption, have it in the extra stuff that you can add in to boost up that initial image.
Yeah, you've also got your story highlights where you can use that. It's all about finding the real estate, isn't it, within the app, and creative ways of which you can get your personality across. Because That's what it comes down to, really. I think there's, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I think probably like 50-50. It's 50-50 going to be 50% of I'm into the work and 50% of I'm into the creator. And what chances do, like, your feed is the work, but then what chances do you get to show who you are as the creator?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to an artist the other day who follows this show, and she said to me, like, "Oh, I don't have an about page on my website yet." And I was like, interesting. About pages on websites are something that is just a thing. Like, everyone has a, this is who I am, this is what I believe in. No one has that on their Instagram. No one.
Mm.
I've not seen that. Whereas if you made your first story highlight of about me and just fucking sit down and work out who you are. And
I might do
just,
that. It's fucking genius.
yeah, I think I might do that as well, because it's like, it's, if that can be a thing, when you're like, oh, you land on the page, who is this person? If I found two people who had an equal level of art, but one person had a video of them talking about me or telling them about themselves, I'm instantly going to like that person more, have some form of connection with them. Whereas the art accounts that I'll follow for a bit and unfollow is because I don't know who the person is. Whereas if I care about the person, I'm going to stay around. So this is an interesting little thing I think we can all do.
Every single person that listens to this is a person. So it's like, we all, and because I think that's is one of the things that I struggled with the most, was putting myself out there. And especially because, like we said earlier, like, there's no other parts of me on the internet other than this show. It's like, I know that was something that I definitely struggled with until I realized how essential it was to bring a human element to the work that I was making. Until there was that connection, there wasn't going to be any success. So as soon as I realized that, that was what kind of forced me and pushed me into it. It's like, I hate speaking to my camera on my phone and doing stories, but I know that it's essential because I know I'm building relationships with people, and that they deserve to hear from me, and they deserve to be, if they're invested in the relationship, then they need to know what's going on. So what's really interesting is with every single person that's listening to it, some of you guys are going to struggle on that sort of open, putting yourself out there as a person side, because it's hard. But a lot of you are not going to struggle with that because you've got that down. Like, even if the work is not 100% there yet, you've got those amazing personalities that people are really going to want to see. And for me, because I feel like I don't have one of those like really Larry, like blah, out there personalities, that's why I always find it. And as we've said 5 million times on this show, like, we're both introverts. I find that other stuff really hard. Basically, what it's going to do is going to give you a competitive edge, because most artists are just relying on the work. They're hiding behind it. And I know, because I've done it myself, but as soon as you do manage to take that step to come outside of it and say, here's the work, here's me, that's where, like, honestly, that's where you're going to make those connections. That's where everything is going. You'll start to see that momentum. And my advice would be, whatever it is that you think is like boring about yourself, or those things that you take for granted, there are other people out there that either relate to them because it's exactly the same as them, or they feel really interested in it because it's not their day-to-day, it's not their normal life. So I would just urge everyone to start to share that side, because I really feel like it's one of the key factors. It's going to give you a competitive edge against everyone else because most people don't do it. And it's really that start of finding those people that if you do move to another account, they're coming with you because they're on board, because they know you and they like your work and they like you. And that's the perfect combination. I think you really need both. To be truly successful, you need both.
People always talk about kind of story and the importance of story, and like, you just telling what you do and who you are is your story. And if people can see themselves in that, like, I'm an artist, so I'm struggling. This is where I started. You might not even be struggling now. Like, this is where I started from. This is where I've got to. It's like, then just by telling that simple story, then it's like, depending on where people are along their own path at the moment, if they're at the start, then they can relate to where they started and can see where you've got to, and they can be like, oh, well, that means if I keep doing this, then and I keep following this person, then I can get to that stage too. Which is, I think, where you see a lot of people who are really successful now, is where they started from and how it is possible. When I think about Casey Neistat as an example of like a creator that I like, I know that he had a kid at 16, like lived in a trailer, moved to New York, lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with his kid with nothing. Now he's fucking killing it on the internet. Like, he's done really, really well for himself. He's had HBO shows. He's just like, but that, if he didn't come from that initial place, if he was like, oh, I grew up in this really rich family. My dad was a media mogul and I got this money, went to this private school and did this, then to me, I can't relate to that. So I wouldn't have the same kind of connection that I have to him. If you did grow up in a wealthy family, went to a private school, and then that's where it is, that's going to reflect with that person. Like, I'm not saying anyone is better or worse than the other, but it's about finding your people and finding and telling your story and seeing who else can relate to that story and not expecting everyone to relate to that story. Because in those examples I gave there, like, there are two people who've come from two different demographics, two different lifestyles to get to that point. But that's just two different audiences. Like, you're never going to appeal to everyone. Your life isn't going to be inspirational, motivational to everyone, but to a large amount of people, it is, because the internet allows you to be opened up to so many people. So I think just telling your story of exactly what you've done so far is a great way. And if we all have this about me section, then how did you get to where you are now? Like, that's something that if you can help someone else see themselves in your story, I think that's a way that true connection happens, because then you've instantly got something that's relatable. It's like you've got something in common because at some point in your life, you've been in the same place that someone else has.
Yeah, I feel like I want to read a bunch of books about human behavior, and because there's definitely something very human naturey about finding similar threads in other people, and it's those relatable things. I think that as soon as we see someone, especially someone who we put on a pedestal, and I know a lot of we've always asked you not to, but I know a lot of listeners to this show put us on pedestals, and it's like, as soon as you start to see, oh, that's similar, that's similar, that's similar, then you really can, you really realize, like, it was actually silly that I put that person on a pedestal, because where they've come from is exactly the same as where I'm at now, which is why I think it's always been important for us on this show, where we've spoken about those early days where we were really struggling. Things were really fucking hard. Like, because I talk to artists now who are in the middle of that, and it would be easy for us, like 11, 12 years on from when we first started our first business, of like forgetting what it was like then. Because things are good for us now, and like we've worked hard and we've got to that stage after a lot of graft, a lot of years of graft, like we've got to that stage. And saying to those young creatives, like, we know this is possible. I am looking at your work and it's fucking good. Like, I just want you to have the same confidence that I have. But the only reason I have this confidence is because I've been through all the shit and it worked out. And I just want to tell you, like, it will work out. You've just got to keep going. If you stop, then or you're inconsistent, then it won't happen. But just seeing those parallels and always talking about the experiences and the stuff that you've gone through, that other humans can then go, well, I'm going through that right now. And then I can see that brighter side on the other side. Like, I know that. So if we're talking about social media and we're looking at numbers, like, I know I've got a really high number. So many of those people that follow me are not people that are fans of my work. They're people who are trying to replicate what I've done. They're literally just looking at it and going, okay, what's in here for me? Because that was me for years, following other artists, seeing the things that were working and then replicating it myself, doing my own version of it, taking that and running with it. So I think for so many people, they will find their own stories, their own day-to-day so mundane because it's just their story and they've heard it a million times because they've lived it. But as soon as you put it out and you can find those other people that also are going through similar things, because to be growing up now, to be making work now, to be going through a global pandemic, like, there's so much that is shared experience that is tying us all together. And your take on those things, if that's the same take that someone else has, or it's not the take that they have yet, but it just registers something in their brain that, do you know what, you've just said, makes perfect sense to me what you just said. They're your people. And your people are going to be what's going to help you build a community, which is going to help you make a living.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, like, thinking about kind of what people follow and what people consume, and what I consume as well. Most of what I'll consume on YouTube will be someone else has worked something out and they're telling me about it. And I want to know how to do that thing. Whether, and I think this would be the same for when people watch kind of like influencers of kind of like people's lives and stuff, because they're like, that's the life that I want. If I watch them, I'm going to learn how to get it. And thinking about the kind of content we put out, and like, does that help people get to where they want to get to? Does what you put out in the world help people achieve something that's bigger than what they can achieve now? And I imagine every single person listening to this show isn't at the start of their journey in terms of the start, because no way do you think, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to go listen to Creative Rebels podcast. That's the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything. Like that's you're so far through a journey that you're like, okay, well now I maybe have improved my craft to this degree. How do I want to turn this thing that I've got into a career? It's almost like that level up that's kind of with further on in the journey than literally right at the start, which means that you've already accomplished something to get to where you've got to, which means that, well, what have you achieved? Like, and then if you can tell people what you have achieved and how you've achieved those things, people are going to consume what you create. And it's like, no matter where you're at, if you're at art school, if you're 20 years old and you've managed to succeed at something, there's people who are studying art at GCSE at school who haven't got to that yet. So there's still like, they can learn so much from you. And because you've been doing it for maybe 4 or 5 years longer than them, even like people who are in first year at art school compared to final year, there's going to be so much that's learned within that period. Like if we can share the things we learn and help educate the people who want to do that journey too, or at least kind of like show them what the world we live in looks like to be that inspirational, like I'm an artist, this is where I currently work, this is my studio space, these are the materials I'm currently using, this is what I did last week. Like just to see that and see that, oh, someone else can do this, someone else has done this before, means that I can do it too. I think just showing that honest side of, well, this is my life. Like to you, it's boring because the people that you follow are probably earning hundreds of thousands of pounds every year doing insane art for all these big brands and just doing really cool stuff. And you're like, oh, I wish I could be them. But where you're at now is really cool to someone else. Like someone else wants to be where you are within the next 4 years. Like if you're doing GCSE art and you're like, oh, I want to be this insane comic book artist that's doing all of the current Marvel comics, you'll get there in maybe 20 years. It's not going to happen soon. But what you can do, but what you can get to in 4 years is to be that person who's 4 years ahead of you and just see where it's at. I think we have this idea that we can excel so quickly in our career from starting at something to being the best in the world at it. Whereas as soon as we realize that is a longer period of time, that is maybe a 20, 30 year gap to get from the absolute start to where you're actually just doing the perfect thing all the time. Like, it's like, okay, well, instead of like, let's fill that gap with kind of people that we want to follow. And if you follow people who are a few years on in your journey than you, 5 years on, 10 years on, and just have that broader range of things, you'll learn the whole journey. Whereas someone who is so far along compared to you is going to be detached from what you can do currently. And I think it's remembering that it's like, instead of trying to always look for inspiration in the people who are so far down the road, look for people who are just that next step on the journey. And I think if you can follow other creators and also show creators who are just that one step behind you that this is how you get onto the next step, then that's where community starts to form. That's where relationships start to build with other people. And I think if we're always kind of thinking about how we can help someone else with what we do, how is consuming my content benefiting someone else, even if that is just me posting a picture of my studio here and a young photographer seeing it and being like, one day I would love to have that. Because when I was a kid, one day I would have loved to have this. And it's funny for me now, the people I watch, I'm like, oh, well, I want fucking massive, like something even bigger now. But like what I have now, so many people walk in here who are other creatives and they're like, oh, I'd love to have something like this. So it's remembering that what you have currently, someone else wants that. And just being some form of inspiration, kind of helping people get to where they want to get to. And I think if we can have that kind of view around what we create, it'll just be better for everyone. I think that's where you're also going to get an audience that actually cares about you.
Everything I have is all that I need, and all that I need is everything I have.
Wonderful.
That idea of being generous to others. So understanding that if you are a creative, there's probably a lot of other creatives following you, because that's how most accounts follow. That's how most accounts start off. Is your base audience is going to be other people that are doing similar things to you. I think that idea of generosity is so fucking hard to find that when you do actually do it, you really stand out. I mean, it took me a good couple of hours to write this thread about how I've succeeded on Instagram. I gave everything away. There's not like some secret tips that I was like, better not share that. It's just like I thought about it. I put down every single point, and it took me a couple of hours to write. And then I've put it on the internet for free for people, because I'm not I didn't want to package that up and sell it in a book, which I probably could have, to be fair. Like every point in this thread, I could write another couple of paragraphs about, go into a bit more detail about it. I could package that up and put it into an ebook and charge money for it. Because that's not how I make my living, because I don't need to, because I make my living from my art. Like, I'm perfectly happy to put that out into the world, because for me, I could get some cash from it. But what's more important is to help a bunch of artists to build that connection with them, because I've given something, like you and me with this show every single week, hours and hours and hours of content. Like, we've given it to you. Like, it's free, it's out there. There's not enough of that. Like, there's not enough artists who are going, oh, this gallery's just put me on. What are the other artists that I know that they might be interested in, that I could send an email to them? Like, I just think this idea of like lift as you climb, like our former guest Viv Goscrop talks about, chucking out the odd opportunity to someone that you know, bringing them along on the ride with you is so important. It's when I got, I've told the story before on here about how Goldie got me in his gallery, and I've put Goldie in touch with my screen printer, and now my screen printer is doing all of the prints for Aurum Gallery in Thailand for Goldie. And he's like so super grateful that that connection was made. It doesn't hurt me that he's doing. Do you know what I mean? It helps me, in fact, because Goldie goes, oh, he recommended someone who's really fucking good at what they do. It's like it's win-win all round. Whereas I think most people think like, oh, I better not rock the boat. I better not. Like, people do realize that there's other creatives other than you out there. Like, it's not all of a sudden they're going to go, oh my God, I thought you were actually the only one that existed. So be generous, put forward other people, bring other creatives along with you for the ride. Even it'll be good for your career, but like, it's just more fun than doing everything on your own, knowing that you've got others that you can rely on that are going to then help you on other things. It's the source, man. It's the one.
Yeah, and then also like the relationship that you're going to grow with that screen printer as well, that you just put them in touch with someone else, because you could have just said to Goldie, I can do your prints for you. Just send me whatever you need and I'll get them done. And it's like, then you go to the guy and you just become the middleman. But then it's like so much of your time is then taken up of being the middleman. And I think that's this trap that a lot of young creatives get into as well. It's like, oh, a little bit of cash there. I could earn a little bit of profit there.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on that and I'm going to start doing the screen prints for that as well. And it's like, just becomes this like, you're just doing a bit of everything, but you're never really doing it well. But actually, I think for a career to be successful and be sustained over a longer period of time, like trust and the trust you build and relationships that you build is the most important thing out of anything. It's like, as you're talking about there with your Twitter post, it's like you could have put that out and someone could have paid you money. But if someone consumes that and benefits from it, without you even knowing it, they've paid you in trust. They've paid you in a bit of a relationship that's been built. And that's obviously not visible. Like, we can't see that, but that it's an existing thing that makes a difference to you going forward. Because the more trust we can build with people, the more likely that, like, as soon as you drop another set of prints or some like sketches or something, that they'll be like, oh, that's the guy who really helped me on that. I really took some value from that. I built some trust with him. Whereas it's like, if you just put it out as a book and there was no way for them to like really know who you were or anything, they might read that, consume it, and then just like never think about you again. But it's like, when we think about all of the people that we kind of consume, like whether it's their podcast, whether it's their audiobooks, whether it's like just speaking to them on the show, relationship is built every time someone helps you. It's like, there's people who I love on YouTube who are like just people who do tutorials, and it's like, I've never seen any of their life, but they've given me so much value in what they do that I really respect them. And if they drop something that was like a paid thing, I might be like, oh, I'm just going to buy that, like whether I need it or not, because I know I'm going to support that creative by doing that, or support that person by doing that. So I think, yeah, it's that idea of almost like trust karma. Like if you put stuff out into the world that's going to help someone else in some way, even if it's to just inspire them to see where they can get to and where you've come from. Just even just like invest in a bit of story. Like people love story. Like the currency of trust, I think, is something that we don't appreciate enough. We're always looking for that like little bit of cash that's a short term goal, whereas trust doesn't go away. Like as long as if you can keep providing stuff to people and the trust keeps building, like that is so valuable. That is something that we need to strive more for rather than just looking for, oh, I can get a quick bit of money for that.
Yeah, it's holding your breath, and given that I did talk earlier about knowing how hard it is to be that early stage creative, it's always a difficult one to talk about, because I do think that holding your breath is the best for your career. Because if you've got, for example, if you've got a really distinctive style, the first brand that you worked for, they've really, really got to pay you hard for using your style, because it's going to be, if you do a big campaign with Nike, you are then less, but like you're then less viable to Adidas, because your style has already been seen. So I think we've got to be so protective of our stuff. But then you and me know what it was like where we took jobs that we really did not want to do, that were shit money for shit clients, because we had to do them, because we couldn't have survived if we didn't take them on. So it is, if you have got enough, if you are able to hold your breath for longer, to say no to the stuff that you don't want to do, it will be better for your career, or it will make the ride to success an easier one.
I think it's a balance, isn't it? It's like, I would say if we started again now, I'm sure I would still take the shit jobs because there's such good money in some of them that it was like, it's stupid not to. Like, just, it's almost like out of pride, I won't take it. But it's like, I know that money is going to help me do more of the thing that I want to do. I think it's balancing it. It's if you're doing a shit thing every single day just because the money's there, then like, don't do that. Like, there just needs to be a balance. Even if it was you worked, it's exactly the same principle of working a job that you don't like and then slowly transitioning into an art career that you're doing the thing you love every day. If 4 of the 5 days in a week you're doing bad projects for bad clients who you don't enjoy it, but you're earning the money from it, and that allows you to have 1 day a week to be creative, to do the fun thing, to do the thing that you actually want to do more of in the future, do that. Take the shit jobs, because it's allowing you to have that 1 day. And then it's just that transition of if you've got that 1 day and you're working hard in that 1 day doing the thing you want to be doing for the kind of clients you want to be doing and for the clients you want to be working for, that will grow because you'll be more passionate about it. And it's like, then you'll probably get to a stage where you only have to do like 3 days out of the 5 working. Then you have to do 3 days out of 5 that are working for those bad clients. And it will transition over time. So yeah, I definitely don't want to say to people, just say no to every client that isn't perfect for you, because that is unfortunately part of the journey that we all have to go on. It's just, you either go and get a job working in a completely different industry, or that just is going to pay you a weekly wage, go and work in a coffee shop, go and get a job in an office, go and do something else. But the advantage of, so for us as an example, the amount of those projects that we didn't want to do, but the money was good, we were still improving our craft. We were still using the tools every single day. And I think that can be important as well. It's like, it sometimes as you're in it, it seems like, oh, this is so shit. But you're still learning all the time. You're still using the tools that you're using every day. You're getting slightly quicker at all the things that you do. If you think of like designing as an example, if you're doing logos and websites and stuff for people that you don't like or enjoy, then you're actually getting quicker at using those tools within Photoshop. And eventually, in a few years down the line, when things have transitioned to more you just doing your own thing for the kind of clients you want to be working for, you'll be quicker at doing the stuff. So you'll be able to create more, which as soon as you can create more, you'll get more people offering to kind of pay for the thing that you want to be doing. And it's just this cycle. But like, yeah, definitely, I'm definitely not saying don't take the shit jobs. I'm saying do take the shit jobs if they allow you to do the things that you do want to do. But it's making sure that when you've got that time you do want to do, that you put all your work effort in to making sure that you don't have to do the other ones so much.
Yeah, that makes me think back to when we were just starting out and we're struggling along, and we would do murals for people, and then we would say, oh, we can also do your website, and you ended up doing a bunch
Oh
of websites
god, the amount of
for
websites.
clients
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and it's so funny, and like obviously you wouldn't have had fun building, like there was that donut website that you built, wouldn't have had fun building that, but the time put into it was not wasted time, because now if you want to build your own website, you've got the tools and the skills and the
Yeah.
speed to be able to do that quickly and efficiently.
And there was an event that we worked for as well. And we actually, at that event, we made a video of it ourselves and just posted it. And then the event owners saw our video and were like, oh, that's really cool. Can you come and do that for us next year? And it was like, yeah, this is how much it would cost to do. And it was like, we went and did something that wasn't our profession, but we just went and did it because there was a bit of money there that we could then use that to reinvest back into the company and then help us do more of the thing that we did want to do. And there's so many little projects that we've kind of taken over the years that haven't been around our core product, but have allowed us to do more of our core product, which is like, that's what you need to ask yourself. By doing this, is it going to allow me to do more of the thing that I want to do? If the answer isn't yes, then don't do it. But if it is, do it. And like, you'll learn stuff along the way. And it sometimes feels like, oh, I hate doing this. But like, I don't imagine there's many people who are successful, who are doing the thing that you want to do, who haven't gone through loads of shit. Like, unless you're just born into some really rich family who can just give you all the things, you've never had to do that. But if you're coming from anywhere that isn't that, which is most people, you're going to have to go through a lot of shit to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. And thinking back, I'd forgotten about that, doing that job. It's so funny. When you read business books, and I think specifically this is in Win Without Pitching, I might be wrong, but the advice is always just do your core thing. That's what you've been in. That's what you're there to do. And you need to show to all clients that this is my core thing. This is what I do. This is what I'm best at. And I don't touch any of that other shit. But that's just not the real world. And my advice is like, don't go and film an event for someone if you're not going into event filming. Like, don't. But real life is, if you hadn't gone and done that filming event, then maybe we wouldn't have been able to feed ourselves that month. So it's weighing up, like you said, is there some value in this, even if that value is just, I'm going to be able to eat this month, which is going to be able to carry on, keep the company alive. It's going to be able to me to carry on doing the thing that I actually want to be doing. And I guess that's just what we're always trying to do on this show is remember that there is the other side to this creative thing of like, it's not just a dream world where if you create great work, people are just going to come to you every day and your life's going to be rosy. It's like, it's harder than that. And it's important that we are a responsible podcast and we don't just pump you up with like, with bad advice. Like, weigh it up. Is my time better spent not taking this filming job and going out and pitching 5 clients on what we do? Or is it like, I've got to take this because we're that low down on money supplies and there's bills due and we're going to get kicked out of our studio if we don't go? It's there's always that balance process and working out what's in it for you. And I think one thing that you always have to be careful of is, just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean that you necessarily love it. And I mean, interestingly enough, through you found your photography career through just experimenting with taking photos of our work and always being the go-to, like, oh, get Adam to go out because you've been playing with cameras in your spare time. Adam's got a nice camera, get him to photograph the work. And then that was the first like little pebble that kind of dropped down the hill that started to roll and gather momentum.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually, because I suppose if you link that back to that video that I went to do for that company, like, you could say that was almost one of the spawns of getting me to where I am now. So I think that's what, as a creative, I think it's always good to try lots of different other creative things as well, because you never know what the future's going to hold. You never know what's going to drop next, what's going to be trendy next, like, or even just the tools you can use, like, especially learning something like video. Like, at the start of this episode, we started talking about how important video was for social media. Like, just learn how to do it, because it's not going away. And it's something that you don't know what's going to happen in your life. You don't know where your life's going to take you. I would never, like, if you'd asked me 5 years ago what you're going to be doing in 5 years, I would never have said photographer. Not at all. But it's like, look, and that's what I do full time now. but that's only because I tried lots of different things and I found that, and I was like, oh, actually, that's quite enjoyable. And then I used to do lots of like videos at Graffiti Life, and it was like you can kind of see when you kind of follow it back, all the little kind of like pebbles that kind
Yeah.
of made the impact along the way. But it's like that is a useful tool that's helped me to get to where I've got to now. Whereas if we didn't ever say yes to anything else, that would have never happened, and you would just stayed on that same path. And yeah, I think like as a creative, I think we were talking about the other week, kind of off mic, where so much of your value isn't in the technical skills that you have, it's in your actual creativity. It's in how you can apply that to anything that you do. And I think if you're a creative person and you've practiced a lot within the creative industries, as soon as a new program opens, as soon as a new media platform appears, you can take it up so much quicker because you've already got the experience of being a creative. It's like learning the tool isn't hard. Like learning how to use a camera is not hard. Like it's not hard at all. There's not many settings on there. Like it's pretty simple. And then lighting is like not that hard. Like to look at it as an outsider, you might be like, oh, that looks really complicated. There's all these numbers and dials I don't understand. But if I compare that to something like Photoshop, there's hundreds of tools in that. I don't understand most of them, but I know how to use a good chunk of them. And then when I look at something like After Effects, I'm like, fuck, that's too much. That's like, I know that I could go and learn it, but at the moment it seems intimidating because I don't understand it and I've not even started using it. And I think it's the same with anything, but I know that if I did, like I know how to be creative. So I know I've got enough in my brain that just by learning the tools, I could then go and create something amazing with it.
I was talking to another previous guest, Mike Winnett, I was talking to on Twitter the other day, and I was saying to him that he should get on TikTok. And he was like, oh, I better get my dance moves out. And it's like, that love Mike to death.
Yeah.
But that shows that Mike doesn't know where TikTok is currently, the state of TikTok. Like, only having dance moves on there, that's 5 years ago. Like, we have come a long way. Like, TikTok is an educational platform, and that algorithm is so smart that it knows what you like and it will serve up that content to you.
Yeah, I was actually watching something this morning and they were talking about this kind of guy who was probably in his 50s, loved TikTok. It was his most used platform because he learned loads of golf moves from it. Like he learned, because it's like there's lots of little tips. And he's like, I've learned so much from that platform that has improved my game. And it was like, that's brilliant. And but that's someone who's given it the chance. Like this was a marketing officer for a big company. But so like he's invested in needing to know how to use the tool. Whereas actually, if most people just took the time to learn how to use it properly, they would probably get something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is not a sponsored post, but there's a company called Later, who I think do a lot of really good social media tips and stuff. I'm on their mailing list. They do sell a product, but a lot of their information that they give away is for free. I think it's like a scheduling app. I don't pay for the product. Literally, I just get their mailing list, which has always got loads of social media tips. But it's like, start learning. Start like if you picked up a camera and you didn't know what all those dials meant, you would go on YouTube and you would look at what do these dials mean. Like, I had someone ask me the other day, like how to do a collaboration post on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that your post goes on your feed, but it also goes on the person whose feed that you collaborated, essentially opening you up to an entirely brand new audience. That's so beneficial for both parties. To be a collaborator is great for both sides, especially if you've both got a sort of fairly equal following. That's win-win for both of you. And I was speaking to someone who didn't even know that existed. So they're definitely not getting the best out of their social media if they don't know all of the different features that these platforms have that we can be utilizing. Like, did you know that if you go live often on TikTok, that then TikTok will post out your most recent videos to people's streams because they're trying to get people onto your live feed. The reason they're trying to do that is because then that means people are going to spend longer time on the app. This is all behaviors that benefit the app, but you can utilize them to benefit you as the creator as well. I think we're heading into a really interesting time where Web3 is going to take over. And again, if you haven't heard of Web3, like read some blogs, do some research, but it's essentially, we already spoke about maybe Instagram is going to die, but I've already seen Instagram looking at bringing out ways like where you could subscribe to someone on Instagram, and that would be a monetary thing where that creator got paid for making their content. So already the big platforms are seeing a looming threat and addressing it already. I think they've rolled that out. They're kind of testing that in the States at the moment. But be aware that the state of the internet is changing. There's going to be new platforms popping up. I think there's going to be rivals to Instagram. I think Web3 is going to be a really big thing. But if you're not educated about it, then you're not going to be able to be early. You're not going to have that early advantage. And you're not going to be able to grow on the existing platforms that we have if you don't do your research and learn about how to use them in the best way. If you're not making reels on Instagram and you only produce still content, you're missing a really big trick. Maybe you feel like your content can only be seen as a still image. Are you sure? Like, you live your life by moving around. Even if you make a static 2D object, what do you do in your day around that object that could be brought to video? There must be something.
Well, I think like any physical flat image that we produce wasn't produced through just thought alone. Like, some movement had to happen to get to that point. And it's like, if it's a screen record, if you're doing it on a computer, if it's a video of what you're doing, like process, it's like there was process to get to that final thing. Show a bit of that process. If you're too precious about showing a process, then show some cool little sneaky things that lead to a reveal at the end. Like the amount of people who just do like close-up brush strokes, it's a satisfying video to watch, and then there's a big reveal. That's a thing that people consume. It's like the idea of suspense in that is great. It's something that as humans, it's something we like to watch and consume. Like, there is so much we can do to just make our work like move.
Yeah, I saw this really interesting TikTok that was talking about the human brain's need to close a loop. So if you start a video with, because you've got 2 seconds to capture someone's attention before they flick to the next one. If you open a loop, which is essentially like, it's almost like clickbait, but you're asking a question that is then unresolved in my brain. I'm going to continue watching so that loop can be closed. And there are these really interesting creators who will do a double open loop. It's fascinating. So they'll ask their first question that will get me thinking about something. The example they were using was something about fast food restaurants. So it's, did you know this about a Taco Bell taco? I don't know, whatever it was. Did you know this about Taco Bell taco? Then they'll start talking about that. But while they're talking about that, they'll also go, they use this amazing hack. Then they'll carry on. So you've opened 2 loops there. Then you close the first loop. Then you close the second loop. And that keeps like the videos that have but like the double loop are like, their watch time is incredible. If you can increase that watch time, it's so clever. But what you were describing there is those close-up brushstrokes, that opens a loop of me wanting to see, well, what is this person creating? Then by the time you show the finished image, again, showing the finished image, I've seen a bunch of creators on Instagram showing just that part, just brushstrokes, but then they don't show the final reveal at the end. How unsatisfying. Like, my loop wasn't closed.
I could potentially, by seeing that one piece of content, be with you for the rest of my life. Like, that's something that we need to think about in terms of like customer lifetime. If you don't satisfy me, I'm not coming back for a second go. It's like, if you see something and you're like, oh, that was cool, I really like that, I might subscribe and come back and watch more and more and more. If you're like, oh, here's just a little bit of a tease and there's no reward, it's like, well, fuck you. Like, this is a platform giving me stuff that is going to satisfy me. It's going to fill all those loops. It's going to be good for my brain's little dopamine rushes. If you don't do that, well, fuck you. I'm going to be on to the next one. Like, it's because the next person will give me that. And I think making sure that we, do close those loops. You do kind of tell a story that has a start, middle, and end, not just a start or just a start and middle. Because that also pisses me off when I see a video on TikTok that's like, that never has an end, and I'm like
for part 2,
fuck that. Like, part 2 is probably not going to come up on my thing, and also if I like it, it doesn't mean that I'm actually going to see part 2. I'm not stupid. I know that's not how it actually works. So it's like, what? You're
very very likely to. If you like it, you're very very likely to see part 2. The algorithm is so fucking smart. If you watch a video to the end, it's very likely that they will show you the next video that creator makes.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Because I probably don't consume enough on TikTok for that to be something that is actually really seen. But saying that, when I do go on, it's definitely the same creators that I've watched all the way through a bunch of times. So So yes, to tell a story, but then I also want to kind of push that as a tactic, because I think maybe if you've got a certain level of people following that would do that, but
Oh, dude, yeah, no. For the like for part two, people find it so annoying, and although they may like because they do want to see part two, you are actively pissing them off. You're not. Everything we've spoken about in this episode is about building an engaged audience
yeah.
that of people that know, trust, and like you. Doing that is not building trust. It's pissing people off. They're going to want to close that loop, so they're going to want to see part two. As soon as they've seen part two, they're going to unfollow you or not interact with any of your comment because you've burnt a bridge with them. It's so funny, isn't it? That like a digital burnt bridge by not giving the full story on a TikTok. This is the world we live in now. Like, what a fucking stupid place to be in, but it is what it is. Look, I think there's been a lot in this episode. It's funny, when we did that episode recently where we were talking about maybe this is not the stuff people want to hear. Maybe they just want to hear about how to get a load of followers on Instagram. Well, now we've done both. So hopefully people find this really useful. If you have found this useful, dude, please go to Spotify right now and give us 5 stars. We would love you to the moon and back. Everything we spoke about on this episode was about gaining trust and loyalty with people. Hopefully we've gained that trust and loyalty with you, and you can show us that by giving us a review on Spotify. It would mean the absolute fucking world to us. We love you guys. We do this show for you, and the one thing that would really help us is that review on Spotify. So please, if you have time, go and do that for us.
And also thank you to everyone who sent us over on Instagram what their big plan for this year is, like last week, because it was great to see those come through of people who are actually putting with their thoughts for the year into words and making themselves accountable by just telling someone else. So yeah, so if you've got anything that you're planning this year, if you just want to ask us a question, @RebelsCrate on Instagram. See you soon.
We love you guys. Have a good week, and we'll speak to you soon.